When the Bible is closed, Dennis Prager can claim that the book is what it isn't. But when you open the Bible, it's exposed. There are many passages where there's absolutely no indication that the intention isn't for the passages to mean what they say. Dennis Prager has said in the Old Testament, the eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, the statement of like for like retribution, the statement of revenge, doesn't mean if somebody kills your daughter that you kill their daughter. That's what he says, but there's no basis for that, because actually, like for like retribution, that's exactly what it means. If somebody kills your daughter, absolutely, you can kill theirs. There's no basis for Prager's argument that, oh no, that's not what it means. There's absolutely nothing behind that. He also says that the eye for an eye in Exodus 21 meant equality. This is part of what he had to say.
Every person's eye is as precious as anyone else's. The eye of a prince is worth no more than the eye of a peasant. This was completely new in history. The Babylonian Code of Hammurabi, for example, legislated that the eye of a noble was of much greater value than the eye of a commoner.
When you open the Bible to Exodus 21, you find out that Dennis Prager is lying. This is not a book about equality. Men are not equal to women. Non-Jews are not equal to Jews. Slave masters are not equal to slaves. People with wealth are not equal to people who don't have wealth. This book begins talking about male Jewish slaves who you are to let go after 6 years. But if it's a female Jewish slave, you are not to let her go as you would with the male slaves. And even with the male slaves, it's easy to get them to be slaves for life. If while in captivity they marry a female slave and have children, when their 6 years is up, they're not allowed to take their wife and children with them. They are still owned by the master. So they have two choices. They can leave, or they can stay with their wife and children and then dedicate themselves to being a slave for life, commit to being a slave for life. Now, who are the slave masters? They're the ones with wealth. Who are the slaves? They're the ones without wealth. So obviously these things aren't equal, which continues to become clear as we read further into this book, into this particular chapter. If you beat a fellow Jew who's not a slave so badly that they can't get out of bed for a few days, then you owe them money for their lost work, and you owe them money to get them better. But if you beat your slave where they can't get out of bed for a few days, then it's your property. There is no punishment. If you kill a fellow Jew who's not a slave, then you are to be killed. But if you kill your slave, you're to be punished, but you're not to be killed. It then continues. If you have a bull with a reputation and you haven't been responsible and haven't kept it locked up, and it winds up goring a slave, then you're to pay 30 shekels. But if it gores a fellow Jew who's not a slave, then the bull and you are to be put to death unless you can make a required payment. In other words, you can trade wealth for your life. Now, who's going to be able to make this financial payment? Someone with wealth or someone who doesn't have it? So as we can see very clearly, this is not a book of equality. It's not a book of equality between men and women, between Jews and non-Jews, not equality with foreigners. certainly not equality with slaves and slave masters, certainly not equality with people with wealth and people who don't have wealth. It is clearly not a book. Now, when the Bible's closed, Dennis Prager can claim that the book is what it isn't. But when you open the Bible, the truth is exposed. Just like if somebody has a bad haircut, they could put on a baseball cap. But when that cap comes off, the truth is exposed.
Come on!
All right.
So whose interpretation of an eye for an eye is correct? Don't trust Dennis? Don't trust me. Google Exodus 21. Read it for yourself. This is Jim Wall. Thanks for watching. Until next time.
Cisco, do we have to leave all our good friends now? Only until next time, Pancho. Adios, amigos.